Okay, here we go. Right, yes. We are progressing through a series, slowly, but still progressing through a series of fascinating stories, and today is no exception, case studies, where, as we said, it's a bit like understanding these cases is a bit like a game of chess, because you have to basically anticipate the next move, and if they trip themselves up in an earlier what's it called, earlier kind of claim, then that ruins them for the next bit. We are up to the second wide line on Lamed Omid base. Yeah, the dafim here are very short because there's an awful lot of Rashbam. Second line on Lamed Omid base. Yeah. Someone said to someone else, "My boy is Bahai Ara. What are you doing in my land?" Effectively, what are you doing in the land? It's mine. Amalei said to him, "I bought it from so and so, and I have used it for the requisite 3 years." Now you already see that he's kind of like put himself in a bit of a difficult situation, because the classic way of claiming chazaka is 3 years, used it for 3 years, no one objected, and a valid claim. Simple. What's a valid claim? I bought it from you, I inherited it, whatever, right? Here he hasn't done that. He said, I had it for 3 years, but he says, the claim isn't I bought it from you, the claim is I bought it from someone else. I bought it from Reuven, he sold it to me. So the obvious counterclaim, which the other guy makes, is Amalei says to him, that's great you bought it from him, but he's a thief. So he stole my land. So you bought it from Reuven. Let's get the people right. Reuven, Shimon, no, what's the easiest way of doing it? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, yeah. So Reuven, okay, Reuven's the one, let's do it like that. Yeah, Reuven's currently in the land. Reuven says he bought it from Shimon. Levi comes along and says, my land. I said you got it from Shimon. It's true, you did get it from Shimon, but Shimon's a thief. Shimon stole it from me, the land. You bought it from Shimon. So thank you very much. Can I have my land back? Amalei said to him, for Isli Sadi, I have got witnesses, Adim, da'asis ba'orta, that you came to me, you came at night, va'omrsli in you the evening, va'omrsli, you said to me, zavnani ali, and you said, sell it to me. You came yesterday evening, you locked up in my house, and you said, you know that piece of land, I'd love to buy it. And he's got Adim that you did that. This is a bit of an interesting twist. You with me? Levi has claimed that Shimon is a thief. Reuven says, but if Shimon's a thief, why did you offer me money last night for the land? What's the obvious answer? Well, David, you're into wheeling and dealing. Why would he do that? Why would he offer money for his own land?
Because he wants to establish its value?
No, because sometimes it's worth offering money for your own land without going into the hassle of getting it back in a court of law.
Oh, so the legal fees without split the price that I was going to pay. So
that type of thing. Exactly. I want my land back. That's my priority, right? I've established that it's easy for me to go and offer the guy 500 quid in cash, right? Rather than take him to court, right? And that's his response. Amalei said to him, I said, Isvan Dinoi, I will purchase what I'm entitled to, Badin. That is a legitimate claim. People do that. They sometimes pay their way even for something which they are legitimately could get through legal means. People do that, and therefore what? Who gets the land? Levi, right? Levi, right? Because, as we've said, Reuven's claim to the land, which has to be built, established, created through chazaka and taina. I've got 3 years chazaka, and I've got a valid claim, has been found to be a leaky ship. Yeah, well, no, you can't, not yet, because we have to understand it first, right? A leaky ship. Why is it a leaky ship? Because the claim, he does have a claim. It's based on a third person, and that wouldn't be a problem if the link can be established clearly. We discussed the other time, like if I can establish the other guy had it legitimately for a certain length of time and everything, whatever, that type of thing, right? But here, the reason why there's the other guy has a legitimate story, which is that he stole it from me, therefore it's not yours. And even though he's managed to survive a really what should be a really devastating proof that he was a liar, because he actually paid for it. And the answer is no. People do that sometimes. I will come back to you. I want to see the Rashbam first, and not yet because I'm going to see the Rashbam first. I will come back. Don't worry, I'm not forgetting. Right? Let's see the Rashbam. Right? V'omrasli is very short, right? Just very few lines. V'omrasli, you said to me, Zil zavno niali, go and sell it to me. V'im shelcha Rasham is about halfway down the wide lines. V'im shelcha if it was yours, you should have extracted it from him for free. You shouldn't have wasted your money. So Amarti, I said, believe in my heart, better for me to buy with a bit of money the land which is suitable for me, and not to trouble myself to come to Beis Din. There's many.
If that's what he said, right, it was better.
I can't have split. I can't. It's not going to be fair because Jeremy's going to say, "Hey, why are you taking Johnny's question?"
No.
What? No. We'll come back to both questions. Let's see the next Rashbam. We'll come back to it. 1 second. So we stay focused. Johnny, hold your question a second. Ovid inish to Zovid today. So the Rava says people do purchase their judgment. Wasn't it? Odom Tam, simple person. Interesting. I don't think it means simple like simple. Yeah, straightforward. Yeah, straight down the line. Like, doesn't want the hassle and lawyers and yeah. Doesn't want to fight. I feel shaloi, even if something is his. People do that, right? I know I can get it, but I can't be bothered, right? Also, it's reasonable for him to do this, to spend his own money, to take what belongs to him rightfully without having to go through a court case, or machlokas and having to fight over it. Rabbeinu Chanan explains it slightly differently. He says, Amino, I said, lemizvan dinoi, to buy my din, liknos hamarivos, to acquire the fighting. What does that mean? Klema avabishi shali, even though it's mine, eini motzia miyodo below marivos v'dinin. I'm not going to be able to get it from him without fighting and going to court. Ekna osam hadinin v'hamarivos speido amos. I'm going to acquire that battle and that fighting and those court cases with this money, even though the primary land is mine anyway. In other words, it's slightly different. It's slightly different. It's the same outcome. It's the same outcome, right? The first way he's learning is Ovidinish to Sovin Dine. A person buys their din, meaning a person will do this. He will spend money to take his own property without in other words without going to din. It's a bit difficult to understand how that means. What's that got to do with buying a din? I think it's just that's why I think he brings Rabbeinu Chanan to sort of say, well, it means that you're acquiring that battle. That's what you're paying for, basically. You're buying stuff out the battle. Means that's what you're paying for. The question, what am I paying for? It's my land anyway. The answer is I'm paying. What? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm doing. I'm paying to have no property, right? Yeah. Irritating. Yeah. Jeremy, what was your question?
The initial discourse between the two parties.
Yes.
Was parlayed without witnesses?
What? No, there was. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's an important point. That's right. The conversation is just exactly. It's between them, not with the. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is obviously then reported. Then
it's not denied.
Well,
it's not denied that Ruvain went.
Yeah, this is look again. It's a bit difficult. It's not so simple to understand these cases, whether they are case studies or actual cases. I mean, the next Omid, for example, it's absolutely clear that it really happened because you see the dialogue. Basically, someone changes their claim because what Rav Shesha says is clearly reporting a story, right? It's possible that this is actually a case study. Do you know what I mean, right? Yeah. But the point is, as long as Jeremy's point is very important here, because as long as everyone agrees, then there's no reason to come to Beis Din. What happened? So the only point of coming to Beis Din is where we contradict each other. Here is what we call, again, Hilchos Toin v'Nitzan, claim and counterclaim. Claim and counterclaim go backwards and forwards multiple times. I say one thing, you say another thing. I say this is mine, and you say no, it's only half of it. I say that until we reach a point where we clash, and that's when we need to come to basic, right? Johnny, you had
The next question is,
you had another question.
on that point, this concept of I will buy this
Right.
from you
Yeah.
is a new concept that I don't think we've introduced before. And you just explained in the Gemora a couple of lines down about how the ins and outs of it. But it's almost like with a new case comes a new concept that wasn't introduced before.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. Each case is designed to tell us something new. And this is a new
And the
concept.
clinch here is that there's this called the idea of
Yeah,
that's
that's not the key chiddush. The key chiddush is that as long as Levi has a reasonable claim, the default is he keeps the land. And Ruvain, who cuts chazaka, has not got enough to get it from him. It's always the main thing here. This is always, this is always the key thing, right? Levi is the Morakama. He's the original owner. Everyone agrees to that because he's got proof he used to own the land, right? Reuven cannot get it from him unless he's got a solid claim. Chazaka and a taina. He doesn't have that here. Johnny, you have a question?
Can you just clarify also this question in case I'm going to ask the same thing?
No, Jeremy was saying, when did they come to base it? That was his original one. When did they actually come to base it?
Okay, so what I don't understand, the way in which the Rashbam explains it, it's the way we said this case, that he's saying it's easier for me to go and pay for it
Yes.
than for me to go and fight.
That's right. I prefer to pay.
Well, just so then, if you prefer to do that,
Yeah.
for the money,
Mm-hmm.
why then are you then subsequently now challenging?
Oh, and you didn't actually pay. It doesn't say that you actually paid the money. I've got Aiden that you offered me the money. I refused the money. I refused the money because I want to keep the land. Yeah, of course, right, absolutely. Reuven doesn't want to keep the land. Yeah. Reuven wants to keep it. Reuven doesn't want to keep the land. Reuven doesn't want to. Reuven doesn't want to sell it. I'm very happy with this bit of property. He wants to try and use that as a way of proving that you're not the owner. You're lying. That's why you're offering money, and that's what Levi is able to successfully defend. Okay. Good. Okay. We're all clear. Good. Next case. Someone says to someone else, my boys for high arrow. What are you doing in this land? Same thing, same setup, but each time the scenario changes. Omele says to me, I bought it from this person, so and so, and I used it for 3 years. So far, the same as before. Yeah, exactly the same. He's claiming that he's been there for 3 years and he bought it from someone else. Omele says to him, I've got a star. I've got a star that I bought it from the same guy 4 years ago. That's quite clever. Basically, you're coming along with a chazaka and you're saying, what? I've got 3 years chazaka, and 3 years ago, I bought the land from Shimon. Yeah? Reuven says, 3 years ago, I bought that from Shimon. So Levi says, I bought it from Shimon 4 years ago, and I've got a star to prove it. That's impressive, right? I kept my star for 4 years, and I've got it, and here it is. Here it is. Now, let's understand this very carefully. Let's understand this very, very carefully, okay? What can Reuven not do? What can he not defeat? The star, right? Okay, so he's in a bit of a tight space now. He's in a tight corner, right? You understand? You got to think, you got to get into the minds of these two people, right? He has been severely limited now, and his room for maneuvering is very limited because he's now up against the wall. Because this guy has got a star which precedes all his talk of like 3 years and no one interrupted me and no one made a machor, no one objected, and I bought it from him and everything. Well, excuse me, I've got a star that I bought it from this guy 4 years ago. So it's really going to be difficult to get out of this one. Miraculously, he's going to manage some.
Surely this is not a scenario of the way this is being presented. It's almost like, okay, so Levi's the moral cup. Levi's not really the moral cup. Really, Shimon's the moral cup. Because what's
yes, that's true.
What's Levi saying?
Yes, that's true.
Shimon was the original person.
That
had it. He was the one.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I bought it from.
Yeah, that's
Shimon.
fair enough. Yes.
A year before, you bought it from.
In other words, what you're saying is the way Levi tries to claim ownership here is by shifting the pieces, shifting the players. He makes Shimon into the Morakama. That's what he does.
Yeah, but surely that we can that in of itself we can leave this position.
Why?
Because he's not really classified as the more.
Okay, but he's got something which is even better. He's got a star. They bought it. So the question is, how is Reuben going to get out of this? And this is how he does it. Omali said to him, "Mi savras shnei chazaka tzlashani kamina." When I said years of chazaka, I didn't mean 3 years. Don't be silly. Now he didn't say 3. He said chazaka. Years of chazaka. No, it's 5 is not enough. Think about it. Yeah. No, it's also not enough. Oh, on the ball. Think about it. He's got to have 3 years before the other guy bought it. Because he's got. Remember, he doesn't have a star. Reuven's got no star. If he had a star 5 years ago, that'd be great. If I can produce a star, if I bought it a year before you, if I produce a star, I bought it a week before you, it's mine, right? But if I have no star, my only possible option is by saying, I had a chazaka for 3 years before you even came along.
Shimon was even a Clinton's.
That's exactly. Yeah. A lot of years, right? A lot of years. Yeah, you imagine them sitting there in Surah and Pampadisa and Bovel creating these cases. No, it's brilliant. Working it out. Everyone. No, because I mean that seriously. The Gemora, because the Gemora wants to have cases that each bit of it teaches something new and different. And do you know what I mean? It's so sort of cleverly built each stage of the sugya to bring out a different point, right?
Someone's actually polished now.
Yeah.
How has the Chazaka been there 3 years or whatever, however many years? No, he's got the owner's got the
No, but because I can produce, if I can show that I had chazaka before you bought it, that means you bought stolen property. It was my property. I'm the original owner now. I was there before you. It was my land. Star is with the Shimon,
which was 40.
Exactly. We'll see. Do you think I meant 3 years? I meant many years. That's what it means. So now the question is for Beis Din, is that a reasonable thing for Reuven to say? Normally, when people say chazaka, what do they mean? They mean 3 years. So it's a bit of a weird thing to say that here normally means 3 years. Here, because you didn't specify the number, it means 7 years, or it can mean 7 years. Is that a reasonable thing that people say? And again, it's like I said to you, lahavdil, a lot of the legal systems are like this as well. We have to establish what is reasonable. That word reasonable is a very common in law and English law. It's the same, right? The word reasonable, all the reasonable man, right? What would a reasonable person do? What would a reasonable person say? Is that a reasonable thing for you to say? Amar Rava says, "Avidi inshi dekaru l'shnei tuva shnei chazaka." People call many years of chazaka. They do it. Yes, it's reasonable. People do that sometimes. V'hani meli, but the Gemara says the achla sheva. He has to have used it for 7 years, sheva shonim. The kodim chazaka dahai l'shtar dahach. So that is chazaka comes before the star of the other one. Aval shis, top of the next document. Ein lecha machal gedola mizu. If it's only 6 years, then you have no greater objection than this. So that means like this. If let's say I've got chazaka for 6 years, okay, for 6 years, that means that after 2 years, what did you do? You went to, according to what you're saying, yeah, you went and paid money from, let's say, the same person that I bought it from 2 years previously. You went and paid money 2 years after me for the same piece of land.
Without going to means that then that Reuven has then paid Shimon for land which Shimon no longer owns at the time.
I think Levi, but anyway.
No, Levi's for your moral accounts.
That's what, yeah, Morakam, yeah. Levi's he's still in that palettes. I know he's not really the Morakama now, but Levi is the person who's the Ma'ara. Better not call him the Morakama. He's the Ma'ara. He's the one who's claiming ownership, right? Reuven is the one who's got chazaka, right? He's got chazaka. Right? Reuven comes.
6 years. We say 2 years of
2 years into my chazaka, right? 2 years into my chazaka, if it's yeah. Remember, we can't deny the star. That's very important. We can't deny the star. The star is there. It's physical fact. Okay, I have a star. that after that 4 years ago, I bought this piece of land. Now, it's true that could well be fraudulent in the sense that he didn't owe it anymore. He didn't own it anymore to sell it to you, right? But in the halachas of chazaka, it means that you definitely made a machal after 2 years. If you made an objection to my ownership because I was in the land for 2 years, and after 2 years, you went back to the person I bought it from, gave money for the land, right, and claimed it as your own. That's even better than standing up screaming in the middle of the town square and saying, you know that guy Ruvain, he's a Gazlan, he's in my land. It's even more effective. You have no greater objection to ownership than going to the person I bought it from, paying again the money to buy it for yourself. Meaning what? I should look after my shtar.
Hang on, what's it say? It's not the same person. Doesn't have that from Shimon. Maybe doesn't have that.
No, because that's the scenario.
All they're saying is that all Reuven is saying is that I was on this land.
The truth is, one second, the truth is, I have to see the Rashbam. Rashbam says it slightly differently. The objection here is not the machar, the objection to my ownership is not really from Levi, it's from Shimon. Shimon sells a plot of land. Let's assume Reuven's story is true. Okay, that's 7 years. He's had 7 years. He's had the land for 7 years, right? 7 years ago, he bought the land from this other guy who we called Shimon, right? Reuven bought it from Shimon 7 years ago, right? Let's assume that's true, okay? But if Levi, so we're going with the 6 years. Sorry, not 7, 6 years. So 6 years ago, Reuven bought the land from Shimon, and let's say that's true, okay? But if Levi's story is also true, and remember, Levi's got a shtar, so it's obviously true because it is true because the document says that he bought it, right? That means that after me using it for 2 years, what did the seller go and do? He sold it to someone else. That means he's obviously objecting to your ownership. You'll say, my claim is, I bid it for chazaka, I've got chazaka, 6 years chazaka in this case, right? 6 years chazaka, and I bought it from Shimon, right? I bought it from Shimon, right? But Levi can turn around and say, but Shimon obviously, right, wasn't happy with your ownership. He obviously made an objection, didn't he? Because he sold it to me after 2 years.
I'm not sure I get the logic there. He's not happy with your ownership, therefore he sold it. He sold it because he was a Gazlan.
That's fine. But the point is that if after 2 years, right, okay, of chazaka, 2 years of chazaka, right, I've been in the land for 2 years. The person I bought it from goes ahead and tries to sell it. He tries to sell it again to someone else. What is the very first thing I'm going to do? No, I'm going to hold my documents. I'm not going to lose my shtar, am I? If you buy a house and you from some dodgy, what do they call them? What con man, right? If I buy a house from a dodgy con man, right, and I hear that he's trying to flog the same house, right, at the other side of London to someone else, right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be really careful to keep all my documentation, right? Yeah. And that's the whole principles of chazaka. That's what they're based on. And therefore, if Reuven comes along at this point in time, 6 years later, and says, I didn't keep my documents, why should I keep my documents? What for? Why should I keep my documents? It's been 6 years. How long am I supposed to keep documents? What's he going to turn around and say? Levi's going to say, what do you mean? After 2 years, right? After 2 years, the guy you bought it from, we know, because again, I've got a shot to prove it, right? Went and tried to sell it to someone else. So obviously you should have kept your documents. Why didn't you keep the documents? Because you're a liar.
Yeah. There's no proof that Levi is a Gazlan.
No, Levi's got a shtar. Levi's got a proof that he's in it. So I've got. Exactly. Levi says, obviously it must be me telling the truth because you're saying that you get it because you've got chazaka and you've got a great claim. Well, they've been there for 6 years, and you bought it there, and I bought it, and you bought it from someone else, and they bought it 6 years ago. It's all great story, and isn't it? But it's not true because I'll prove it to you. It's not true Because if you were telling the truth, right, the last thing you would have done would have been dispose of the documentation. Because after just 2 years into your ownership, right? Yeah, it's evident from this piece of paper that I've got that the bloke you bought it from sold it to me. So, you would have heard about that, wouldn't you? Obviously, you're going to hear about that. I mean, if you're going to hear about someone objecting, you're going to hear about someone trying to sell the same piece of land, right? And therefore, you should have kept your documents. And therefore, the fact that you didn't means that, again, your boat is sunk. You've got a hole. And therefore, that means who gets the land? Me. Because my document must be true, that I bought it 4 years ago and I've got the true document. However, if you've got 7 years, then everything changes. Why? Because if I have had a 3-year period, of chazaka, then of course I got rid of my documents. So you have no more.
You should have objected.
Exactly, you didn't object to it. Because after 3 years, people get rid of documents. Fact. Yeah, we can't argue with that. That's fact.
That's the basic rule.
Yeah, that's the basic rules. We can't argue with that. That's the doves hopping 50 hours. You can't argue with that. That's fact. So that means to say that if I've had 3 years chazaka, which in this case is 7 years, because of course I've got to go 3 years before the 4, right? So that means if I've had 3 clear years of chazaka plus a claim, which is I bought it from this guy. So then you can't come along and say, you should have kept your documents because the person who sold it to you sold it to me 3 years later. Why should I keep my documents? 3 years, I burn the lot. Martin, you don't like that?
No, so what this case is solidifying in my mind is a set of clear principles to the rule of chazaka.
That is what?
Rule number 1 is that the shalosh shanim of chazaka only applies against the original morekama, i.e. the person that you claim that you bought the field from.
Yeah.
And the second principle is that the years of chazaka, even if someone comes along and says, I've got a star, then I bought it from so-and-so.
Yeah.
And you can argue, well, you should have been moichet during my 3 years. That has no validity because he's holding a star of the chirin. And you're not arguing that you bought it from each other, you're arguing you bought it from a third party, which is kind of the first principle.
So you mean no, I think what you're saying is that if you've got a star which says that you bought it 4 years ago, then that's going to beat my claim, I've had it for years.
So in my mind, the thing here is Shimon. Shimon is the pivot.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I'm saying I've got shnei chazaka from Shimon.
Yes.
And you're saying I've got shtar machirish from Shimon.
Yes.
So my years of chazaka, exclude the 7 years. Imagine I've got 4 years of chazaka, 3 years of chazaka. Stands no chance of basing against your star.
That's right.
Because you're not disputing with me.
That's right. That's right. So basically, you're undermining. That's correct. In other words, it's right. That's right. In other words, what you can't do is undermine my 3 years of chazaka by saying you should have kept your documents. You can't undermine that because people don't keep documents longer than 3 years. But what you can do is you can undermine the taina element. That's what you can do. You can't undermine the chazaka element. You can undermine the claim element. How are you undermining the claim element? Because the claim element was that you bought it from Shimon. I'm telling you didn't buy it from Shimon because I've got the piece of paper to prove that I bought it from Shimon. So that's why you're destroyed. But automatically, then the chazaka falls away. Because chazaka alone is irrelevant. A squatter alone, without a decent story, is not relevant. That's what we said many times. You got it. That's well put. Absolutely, very well put.
Absolutely predicated on the fact that the guy with the chazaka and saying I bought it from the same person that you got the star from. Does it have to be like that? Why does it have to be the same the original Murakami, if you like?
Well, no, because what do you mean? I can't make up someone else.
Yeah, Reuben says I bought it from Naphtali.
Yeah. Okay.
8 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I have a chazaka. I've obviously lost my documents. And then later.
Has he got anything to prove it?
He's got a chazaka.
And what?
And the claim that he bought it from Naphtali, which no one is denying. It wouldn't necessarily have to be denied.
No, but if I claim I bought it from someone else, that's not going to defeat. One second, who's Reuven? Who's Levi?
And this is the problem.
Reuven is the guy. Reuven, we started off with Reuven. Reuven is the guy who's a chazaka, right? Back in Yevamos is easier because Reuven always dies.
I prefer it the other way around.
Everybody dies.
No, Reuven always dies. Because it always starts with Reuven dies. And then you work out what happens after that. It's not quite Yevamos. But anyway, Reuven was the one who has the chazak. It's easier to start, I think. I think it's easier to start with Reuven being the first point, right?
The other way around. So Reuven is the original Murakami.
Yeah, but then you get into complications like here, where who is not clear who the Murakami is. The point, you always have someone claiming chazaka. So that's why it's easy to put Reuven on the person claiming chazaka, because it's like Yevamos. There's always someone dying at the beginning. Here, there's always someone claiming chazaka at the beginning. So I think it's easy claiming. Right.
He says, I have been here for 7 years.
Yes.
And I bought it, according to you, say, and I bought it from Shimon.
Yes.
Whereas Levi comes
Levi comes and says, what?
says, I've got the star 4 years ago that I bought it from Shimon.
Yeah.
And
That's
you're
right.
saying, actually, if he was 6 years, the star trumps any chazaka.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's 7 years, the star does not trump chazaka.
That's great. That's all good.
Yeah.
Now, what do you want Levi to do that's better? So, Jeremy, that was a brilliant summary. What's your question?
Does Reuven has Reuven had to buy bought it from Shimon?
That's his question. His question is, what happens
What-
if instead of saying
it-
I bought it from Shimon,
you won't
I
win.
bought
You
it
can't-
from nothing?
You can't win because I've got chazaka. You haven't defeated my claim or my chazaka.
So that's it. So that's the answer. To the
That's the answer. You understand?
He's just asking, does it make any
Clearly,
sense?
Reuven doesn't have chazaka, right?
No,
So Levi has no chazaka.
correct. Levi's just got the star.
Oh, he's got a star.
No, Levi's got the star.
He's got a star that he bought from Naftali 8 years ago.
And who are you?
Two different sellers.
You're just trying to establish a case of two different sellers. That's what you're trying to.
You're saying that Reuven claimed that he bought it originally from Shimon way back.
That's correct.
Does it have to be that he bought it from Shimon? In other words, the same person that Levi bought it from. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. You want to create two. You want to create two different sellers, and I'm not sure how having another seller is going to defeat Reuven's claim. Reuven's got 3 years hazaka.
I'll tell you why,
How? Go on,
because
how?
if Reuven says, I bought it from Naftali 10 years ago, 7 years ago,
And he's got a star.
and I've got, no, I'm not,
He's got no star. Okay, yeah.
I have my chazaka 3 years. Obviously, I don't have the star anymore.
Okay, yeah.
You, Levi, are coming along saying you bought it from Shimon 4 years ago. Sorry, but I had already long ago bought it from someone. This field was never Shimon's.
Yeah, I think we mixed up the people again there.
No, this field was never Shimon's.
Who's the first person who's starting? Who starts the conversation? Reuven.
Reuven is the guy who cuts off. He's
Reuven.
sticking to your system.
And he claims that he bought it.
From Naftali.
From
From
Naftali.
a different buyer.
From
Okay.
a different, but from a different seller.
Right.
Many years back.
Yeah.
He hasn't got his star anymore because time's expired. He's got
Yeah.
a time expired claim now with his chazaka.
Yeah.
So there's no need for him to have it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Then Levi comes along and says, this was my field
Yeah,
originally because I bought it from Shimon 4 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Why can't Reuven say, sorry?
Well, he can. Then he
No,
will.
yeah, I'm saying, why is his claim defeated by the fact that Levi has got this star from that he bought it from Shimon?
Because if it's the same seller, then my claim is wrong. Remember that you have to remember the Reuven does not have any documentation.
But he doesn't have to have.
Yeah, no, he does. He needs a claim. He doesn't need documentation. He needs a claim. He needs a decent story. It's like a title
No,
claim.
I'm saying,
You don't have anything. I don't have a story. Because the story is clearly doesn't hold water, because you're saying I've got chazaka, and
the donkey's
yeah.
The claim that the original seller is dead, whatever it is. You see, whatever I bought it from.
But Levi comes along and says, I've got proof that I bought it from at a different stage.
I say your piece of paper is worthless.
Why?
Because it was always mine.
So
You can't make up a story. I mean,
sorry, who is living on the land right now? In your
Reuven.
Reuven.
Yes.
Right. So,
Either way.
and then you're
Was it-
saying that Naftali, non-dom Naftali is gone.
He's gone. He's out of the
Yeah.
picture.
He's
Yeah.
not out of the picture.
Yeah.
But you are claiming that. I mean, maybe you could do that way. You could do it with anything, right? I could literally turn up at your house and say the guy before you bought it.
Well, let's
Sold
have
it to me.
witnesses.
I know he's
that I was
dead.
there 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm saying let's have witnesses that I was there 7 years.
Who has? Reuven.
Reuven.
Yeah. Okay.
So and it's not. Is that he's
But
got
we've got
chazaka.
witnesses.
He's got witnesses that he's got a chazaka. The chazaka is that's all.
I
I'm
just think
saying.
the scenario that you're creating is like almost literally, it's not the scenario that we're talking about at all,
It's a fair point.
right?
No, it's not. No, but Jeremy's trying. No, but Jeremy's trying to understand this point. The point is that if you have to have a taina, a claim to back up your chazaka. I can ruin that taina if I prove, right? If I prove that that your story is incorrect, and therefore the only way the Reuven can defeat the counterclaim of Levi is by saying, I had 3 years chazaka before you even came along, which is really what you're trying to say, Jeff.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what the Gemara says.
No, but you're saying that Reuven has bought it from Shimon.
Yeah, it has to be from the same person.
Why?
Because if it was from a different person,
That's the question I'm asking. Why?
because
I miss
well, it's just a different case. This is no, it would be a different story there. If they're 2 separate sellers, so then you have a different story. I mean, it could be the Gemara will come to that case. I don't know. Like well, someone says I say I bought it from him, and you say you bought it from him, and you both got proof. I don't have proof, but you've got proof. That's a different case. It's just a different. It's just.
It's like it flips on its head, and it's almost like you're saying really, it's almost like the scenarios that we've had before, where you're basically saying you're telling me that you bought it from somebody.
But you didn't
else.
really.
You bought it from somebody else, but that person that you bought it from, where's your proof? Oh, I've got a shtar.
I think
bought it from this person. I'm telling you that that's rubbish because
I think you should keep.
That wasn't the original owner, and he's never bought it. And
I think you should keep your. I think you should keep your case in your head. See if no, I mean it. See if it's answered in the ensuing cases. See if it's answered in ensuing cases. Let's see the Rashbam. I want to see the Rashbam first. You can afterwards, but I just want to see the Rashbam first. Otherwise, we'll lose track. We'll go. Let's see the Rashbam and we'll come back. Yeah, we'll see the Rashbam. Yeah, let's see the Rashbam first. Right? Only a few short lines. Not. It's okay. One thing. Now.
So which one?
What?
Which one is long question?
You need to write it down. What? So the Rashbam is it's about a third of the way up the wide lines. It's the first one is ha'oretz. I wasn't careful with my star any longer. Amalei said to him, on a kitna shtara, I've got a star shekosed in which is written the zavnoli. He sold it to me. Kloima, that means to say sheknuya etzli min hamoicha hazeh arba shonim. In other words, it was I purchased it from this seller 4 years ago. My purchase preceded your chazaka 1 year. And you didn't sell it from me. You're not saying you sent it from me. Remember, you can never counterclaim. The whole next sugya is about when you can chosev a toyin. There's a din, right? Yeah, once you've tainered something in based in, ain't a chosev a toyin. You can't change a claim. Once you said in based in, you owe me 50 grand, you can't say, oh, I meant 100. Doesn't work. You can't do it, right? Here as well, you cannot now say, oh, I made a mistake. Actually, it's true. You bought it 4 years ago. I bought it from you. You can't do that. You said you bought it from someone else. Finished, right? Therefore, like we said, Martin, before, this is a chazaka which has no claim. The seller can't sell it to you. He sold it to me first. The key point is, you can't defeat my chazaka. You can't attack my chazaka. I've been here for 3 years. You didn't make an objection in those 3 years, which means you should lose it by all counts, unless you can prove that my claim is no claim, right? And my claim is wrong. And I can do that by saying I bought it before you even turned up. Yeah, before you started. Yeah, exactly. The Machzik said to the Ma'arer, Mi Sovras. So the Ma'arer is the person we are calling Levi, right? Mi Sovras to my Amino Shnei Chazaka Dainu Tlashoni, but Simtsum. Do you think that what I said 3 years, I said years of Chazaka, I meant exactly 3 years? No, Shnei Chazaka Tuvaka Amino. I meant many years. Shekodmu l'shtar Shel Harbe. It was a long time before your star. The Yeshli Eidim B'chol HaChazaka. And I've got Eidim of the whole period of Chazaka. Come on. It's very important that he's got Eidim over the whole course of the 7 years, right? And Avol Aficha Chamarti Shnei Chazaka. Stam. Do you know why I just said Shnei Chazaka, years of Chazaka, and I didn't specify 7? I didn't know you were going to come up with a shtar that said you bought it 4 years ago, and that I need to explain 7 years. In other words, it's not normal for a person to come to Basin and say, I've got Chazaka 7 years. Why would you do that? You claim what you need to claim, right? You don't claim what you don't need to claim, right? And that's why I didn't say 7 years. I just said years of Chazaka. Lucky he said years of Chazaka, otherwise he would have really been real. Omar Rava says, Ovid inish to kori shnei tova shnei chazaka. People do this. They call years of chazaka, many years of chazaka, stam, without specifying. V'im bolit en achari kain, the shnei chazaka tova ka'omar yosem egimel shonim. If he comes afterwards and claims that he meant many years, more than 3 years, ein ze choyze b'toyin tainas acheres. That's not reclaiming a new claim. Hatchish tainas of tainas rishonos. That doesn't contradict his original claim. Because people say that. People say when it's not a new claim. When people say that's what people mean. Come on, we hold later on the ein odom toim beveistin v'choyz v'toim tainas acheres. The halacha is you're not allowed to go and claim something in Beistin and then claim a new claim, like I said, lahakish or rishonos, to contradict the first claim. We will always paskin based on your first claim. That's it. First claim. There's no full and final bids. Therefore, when you bring witnesses for these you bring Adim for these many years of chazaka, we believe him, right? We believe him. He's not making a new claim. Now, this is something you've got to keep in mind. This is quite a surprisingness. Do you understand what's going on here? He's got 7 years. He's saying, I had it for 7 years. And he's got Adim, he's had it for 7 years. And it would still be a problem if it was Toyin v'choz of a Toyin. In other words, if it wasn't the case that we could explain what you meant. In other words, the original words you used fit what you're now saying. Since you didn't, let's say you turned up in Basin and said, I've got Chazaka for 3 years. Yeah, then you're ruined. It doesn't make a difference even if you bring Adim that is 7 years. That's quite surprising, right? And that's because what you say is fundamentally important in Beistin. And the rule is you can never make a new claim. Tosfos makes this point. Or something like it. We'll come to it. But basically, it's very important, right? It's only because we can say that it's not a new taina, it's still the original claim, and you're not reclaiming, which is an illegal move in Beistin. Therefore, we can now say, right, okay, we can explain that what you meant really was many years. And since you've got, therefore, Adim, that you've had it for 7 years, okay, we will believe him. But we haven't finished. The last Rashbam, Vahani Mili, Demokmina Lobiyode, and this is only the case that we put it in his hand. The Isi Sadi that he brings, if he brings Adim to Ochla Zain Shonin, 7 years, that he used it for 7 years, Shakod Mishnei Chazaka Shaloi, Lemechiras Hashtar Shel Ma'ara, that his years of Chazaka preceded the sale of the shtar of the ma'ara. Because the seller himself is not able to sell it after I have been there in peace and quiet. That's what b'shofi means, for 3 years. If he's only got Adim for 6 years, hadin in Baal Hashtar, then the din is with the Baal Hashtar. Let me say Levi will keep it. You have no greater objection than this to your chazaka. The seller objected against this machzik at the end of 2 years because he sold it to someone else. This is what I was explaining to you before. And therefore he should have been careful about his shtar, his documentation forever. Until he can get back that fraudulent document from the other guy and rip it up. It's very important. If once an objection has been made like this, yeah, and what is the objection? The objection is that effectively is by the very fact that Mocha has gone and sold it to someone else. You better look after your documentation until you can destroy that document. Once you destroy that document, you can rest easy. Until then, doesn't matter how many years pass. I'm going to expect to. Why? Don't shake your head. What's difficult, Johnny?
Well, I don't want to- Did you want to finish?
No, if there's something not clear, if there's something not clear on this point, let's not carry on without understanding it.
The whole, the Gemora is running with a clear assumption that if that the person would have had to have known
Yes.
that Shimon the seller
Yeah.
has sold the property to Levi.
Why? Oh yeah. Well, no, he will know. He will know. It's a so. No. That's fine. That's fine because we always no because we assume that we said that we've said that before. We assume that news travels. We assume that news travels, and the point is like this: if we already assume that news travels when you stand up in a town square 100 miles away and you say, "I am making a public objection," right? Yeah. And the laws of that, by the way, the halachas around what's called an objection, I think are discussed later on. It's not, but the point is, in a situation where news travels, we say that's good enough, and that's enough to make me have to look after my shtar. Kal v'chomer, right? I'm going to use that look after my shtar if this person I bought it from tried to sell it to someone else. That's even more reason for me to look after my documents. Because the last thing I want is someone else turning up to get the land. Are you going to say, how did you know about it? The answer is we assume news travels. And you're going to hear. Someone's going to tell them, did you know that Shimon you bought? Do you know that I saw him in South London selling on a different property market the same piece of land? I'm going to be really worried about that, right? Why? Because I see that I bought from a crook. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the safe and I'm going to lock up my documents and I'm going to keep them forever until I can get that document that someone is wandering around South London with claiming ownership to my land.
I do have one question regarding this business of the lock-up. If I'm understanding this correctly, but I thought that once you had 3 years chazaka, that's
Then?
it.
No, you have to have a claim.
You have to have a claim.
and chazaka.
No, but that's very important.
No, I agree.
Here we've ruined the claim.
Then I understand. But the top line seems to say that about
Shiz, yeah.
Meaning 6 years seems
Yeah.
to but I thought,
No, 6 years doesn't. 6 is not good enough.
what's the relevance of 6 or 7?
Because the time frame is important. The time frame is important. It's important to go over this.
He's got to hold it for 3 years.
Yes, you have to have 3 years chazaka, right? Prior to any subsequent claim, which would cause you to have to look after your documents or whatever. Okay, that's the
3
point.
years chazaka
Before, and since we know that 4 years ago, this is a fact. 4 years ago, there was some sale made, fraudulent sale, whatever you're going to call it, but there was some sale. There's a document which says that the same seller sold it again. That happened 4 years ago. This is an indisputable fact. I've got to therefore have 7 years. I've got to go back 3 years before that point in time. So to be able to say, you know why I chucked my documents away? Because I had 3 years. Anything less is not good enough.
It's not 6, it's 3
It's three.
plus.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. The Yesh Meforshim, let's finish Rashbam. The Yesh Meforshim, some say the Ein Sorach Eidei Chezka Zayin Shonim. Some say you don't need Eidim for the whole 7 years. Ela Shel Gimel Acharonim. The last 3 years, that's all you need. The 3 years you came originally, we assume you normally have 3 years, Eidos. No. The last 3. And then we believe him about the rest. From the fact that Rabbi says, and as and they learn this from the fact that Rabbi says people call many years of chazaka. Right? Because if there were Adim on the whole 7 years, why did Rabbi need to say people call many years 3 years? Why do Rabbi say this? So there were some who tried to infer, Rashbam says, some Meforshim tried to infer from that statement, Ovid Inish, people call many years, 3 years. If Rabbi's saying that, it can't be you've got Eidim on the whole 7 years. Because why do you have to come on to this business of people generally call, when they say 3 years, when they say years, they mean many years. If it was the case you had Eidim, you don't need that. I've got Eidim. Why do I care what people say or don't say? Or that, years mean, when they said years, it means, and therefore they tried to say, these Meforshim tried to say that that's a proof that you don't have Eidim the whole 7 years. I've got Eidim just on the 3 years, and therefore it's mission critical. The statement, which is right, the statement of Rava, which is people sometimes say, call many years, right? They don't mean 3 years. When they say Shnei Chazaka, they don't mean 3, sometimes mean many years, right? The Rashbam says this is all wrong. This pshat. V'lav milsahu. This is wrong. Shari huchsaka hachazaka b'mokam ashtar umedes. Go back to first principles. We've mentioned this before. What is chazaka? Chazaka is simply a replacement for the shtar. You've lost the shtar. Your chazaka will stand up instead of the shtar, right? That chazaka of the last 3 years over which you have Eidim, because that's what we're assuming now, according to this year's before you just got 8 of those 3 years. Elashtar shel gimul shanim, let it be, no, it's no more than a star of 3 years. And the star of 4 years, which came before it, disqualifies it. You understand? You can't make chazaka into something stronger than a star. And if I have a star which says 3 years ago I bought it from Shimon, and you, Levi, have a star that says 4 years ago you bought it from Shimon, who's going to win? Hands down Levi, right? Obviously, right? So it's not good enough just to have Eidos that I've been in the field for 3 years, because that would just give me a star of 3 years, which is not enough. Okay? So then, of course, the problem is, so why does Rava say that people call, right, many years chazaka, years, shnei chazaka? Why does Rava say that? If it's the case you've got Eidos of 7 years, why do we care what he says? Why do we care? Why do we bother interpreting his words? Forget the dialogue. I've got a star, you understand, it's simple. I've got a star which says, do the same thing. I've got a star which says, I bought it 4 years ago. And he turns back and says, great, I've got Eidim, I bought it 7 years ago. Who wins? Eidim. If you've got a star that says you bought it 4 years ago, and I've got Eidim that I've lived in it for 7 years, again, I don't have a star, that's true, right? But I've got Eidim that I've been in it for 7 years. Clear. No one objected, right?
So if you've only got Eidim for 3 years, if you've only got Eidim
Yes.
for the original 3 years,
Yeah.
then it is ultimately, that's why Robert's saying it, because you haven't got the Eidim for the full 7 years.
No, we do. We do. We say,
You're not taking-
yeah, but the Rashbam says you do. Then now the Rashbam has to explain according to his own Pshat. He says the Yesh Meforshim are wrong, right? You cannot say, I've only got 8. I know you're probably saying, Martin, you've got to get used to Rashbam. Rashbam is now going to go back over something he's actually already said. Yeah, I know. It's different to Rashi. The Rashi would have left this in two lines, but the Rashbam is longer. That's his style. So he's now going to go back over. But let's be clear on what he's doing. But you do get some. It's very clever the way he does it because he builds up a picture. So the point is that this is the Yesh was right to say it's enough to have 3 years Eidus, and then we apply the principle of when people say something in Beis Din, they say years, they can be many years, right? That's what they are. That's okay. But the Rashbam says that can't be right. That cannot be right. Why? Because if it's the case that I've only got Eidus for 3 years, okay, and you've got Eidus for 4 years, you're going to win. Okay, you're going to win because the chazaka is no better than a star. Or Medivrei Rava, he says, you can't infer from Rava that you don't need Eidim for 7 years. Shari Rava Rava comes to tell us all Rava's coming to tell us is that it's not called reclaiming, it's not called a new claim, but with that which he says at the end, I meant many years. Because people do sometimes call many years of chazaka. Because if he was reclaiming to contradict his original words, even if you brought Eidim for the latter years, Eino klum, right? And B'hanei Achronim doesn't mean the latter years. B'hanei Achronim means the second claim, right? In other words, the 7 years, right? Eino klum, it's irrelevant, it's nothing. Because a person admitting something is like 100 Eidim. And once I've said, I only have for 3 years, if that's what we would interpret your words, you're finished, okay? But we're going to go after the first claims that you make. Also says clearly you need Eidim for all 7 years. So all the Rashbam has done here is basically said to us like this. you have to have Eidim for 7 years. If you don't have Eidim for 7 years and you've only got them for 3 years, fundamentally, you cannot win because Eidim for 3 years cannot beat a star of 4 years, obviously, right? So if that's the case, and I've got Eidim, I've been in the land for 7 years, right? 7 years. So therefore, why do I have to have? Why does Rava have to? Why is Rava's point, which is the big chiddush of the whole piece? What's the chiddush of the sugya? The chiddush of the sugya is that even though I originally said I've had it for years of chazaka, we can interpret that to mean many years chazaka, right? Why is that relevant? Because I've got Eidim. So why do I care what we said? The answer is because if you literally snooker yourself by what you said, because you've said something in Based on which can only be interpreted, let's say, if we go as 3 years, there's no difference how much Eidim. Hados Baldin Kameh Eidim Domi. You've admitted you only had it for 3 years. So it doesn't matter how many Eidim you subsequently bring for 7 years, you have admitted it was only 3. Look at Tosfos. Look at Tosfos. Tosfos spells this out clearly as well. That second Tosfos, very short. Aval Eloi Ovid. If a person doesn't call many years Shnei Chazoka, Aval Gav the Islay Sadi, even if he's got Eidim, the Ochla Sheva Shonin, that he's used it for 7 years, Lo Mehim Ninon, we don't believe. The Ho'iu de Makishlahu, because he himself contradicts those Eidim. The Moda Shle Ochla Shnei Chazoka. Dainu Shalosh Shonim. He says I only ate it for 3 years. You understand? So again, if the Baal Din himself disputes the Eidim, we throw the Eidim out. What is the purpose of Eidus? Purpose of Eidus is to try and prove me a claim, try and support me, try and help me establish my right to something, right? If I get up in court and I say something which fundamentally contradicts those Eidim, the Eidim say you had it for 7 years. I said, no, I only had it for 3. Okay, so you're a bit of a numbskull, but the fact is we're going to throw you out your case. Because we don't care how many Eidim you bring there. Because the whole purpose of this whole operation is only to support you, and you've just disputed them. So therefore, that's why it has to be that we don't call it tone the chos of the tone, right? But do you understand? That's the key point, right? And therefore, I'll fundamentally, as long as you don't contradict your own words, which we're saying you don't, you win, and Reuven can keep it because he's got 3 years chazaka before the other guy's star for the 4th year. No, it's clear. Don't think so.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. But what I want to try and understand is where are Rashbam, where's Tosfos, where are we getting this idea
Of what?
that when when Reuven makes a claim, I've got chazaka, I've been there for years, that he's supported by Eidim. The Gemora doesn't mention it anywhere. Doesn't mention it anywhere.
Rashbam has proven it to you. It must be because if I've only got Eidim for 3 years, right?
Why Eidim at all? Why Eidim at all? You want in this scenario? It doesn't mention Eidim anywhere.
What do you mean?
The scenario that the case study that Gemora.
Yeah. Okay. What have you got then instead?
What does he say? He says, "Aluda on my leg."
Yeah.
My body is by Ara. What are you doing on my land? I'm going to say something in pound has been I put it from whoever. But how to Shnei Chazak. And I've been in it for a number of years, right? And I've got a chazak on. And then he says, okay, and then where does the Gemara mention anywhere that actually that Reuven's claim is placked up by Eidim?
Because the whole concept of chazaka is backed up by Eidim.
Yeah. In all our cases,
You can't either say I've got chazaka. Yeah. Chazaka only is a construct that is defined by the availability.
And I can challenge it. That's the point. I can challenge it, right? I can challenge the Ma'ara, person who's claiming the land, right? Can challenge your chazaka unless you can prove that you've been there for solidly without someone objecting.
You can't say chazaka. The only way that you won't fail a challenge by delivering aid.
Well, we said, do you remember the house? Do you remember the case of the house? Do you remember the case? Yes. Do you remember the case of the house? Do you remember the case of the house where he says, I challenge you that you weren't there at night? And we said that's an acceptable thing for you to say. Remember that? Yeah. It's an acceptable thing for you to say. If you come along and say, actually, it's true you were there during the daytime, but you weren't there at night. And we said, Based will say, fine, that's a fair claim. And you're going to have to bring Eidim that you were there at night as well. Because you've got to prove ownership, normal, reasonable ownership. If you come along and say, you didn't use it normally.
So you come along and you say I've been there, and the person says, well, yeah, but you've not been there nights.
Right.
And you say, fine, I don't have proof that I've been there nights because I can't get aids of that proof.
That's it.
But I'm telling you, I've been there for 6 years, so I've been there a total of 3 years.
Maybe that you'd have to aid him for as well.
No, go.
You can't just
You're saying you
yeah.
always have to-
You can't just go of course because otherwise, if I challenge you, if no one challenges you, okay.
You're correct. That sounds valid. Oh, we've got a fair enough.
If no one challenges you, you're fine.
Does that side apply to the Morocco or the Ma'ara?
No, because the Ma'ara has a shtar that used to own it. It's my land.
Yeah.
Not in this case, because this case is different. This I don't know. No, this case I don't have a. This case I don't have a shtar. I used to own it. No. This case I don't. 1 second.
Documentary evidence.
This case I cannot claim, Johnny. I cannot claim that I've been using the land for 7 years unless I have something to back up that claim. If no one has ever seen me in town before, if no one has ever, it's irrelevant. I can say what I like, but maybe it's not going to believe me. So I have to have support for it, right? And that's what the Rashbam says. The Rashbam says that clearly I've got to have something which pushes me back far enough, which and evidence to support that. And his proof is because Chazaka is not better than a shtar. That's all it is. It will just be the 3 years. It doesn't give you more than a shtar would give you. Shtar gives you the framework within which it.
So is there a level? Is it like Shtar Eden?
No, no. Chazaka will function the same as a shtar. The great news is you've got a whole month to do Chazara. And there's enough to do Chazara. Mitzvah will we can read the next show will be on 5th of September, but Ezra Hashem after the Elul. And
in a number of.
what is?
Yeah,
In a number of weeks, yeah. Not enough weeks for Chazaka. No weeks Chazaka. Interesting. Yeah. Or be careful to only claim what you really mean and know, and not start saying hyperbole. Hyperbole. You're gonna go.
Thank you very much.
See you, Richie. Take care. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
But Ezra.